What if the very thing you thought was keeping you safe, the steady job and paycheck, the low-risk choices, the idea that playing small is the smart thing, is actually the thing that's holding you back? If you've ever dreamt about building something of your own, but you're stuck in fear, this episode is for you. In today's episode, I'm talking with author, entrepreneur, and founder Carrie Kerpen of the Whisper Group.
The second you realize you can be your own boss is the moment you realize that you are free.
After building and selling an 8-figure business, Carrie has made it her mission to help women see their businesses as not hobbies, but assets.
The difference between a successful entrepreneur and an unsuccessful entrepreneur is time and commitment to that act.
In this conversation, Carrie shares about how financial anxiety shaped her path to entrepreneurship, why she believes freedom is the ultimate motivator, and how women can start, scale, and even sell their businesses without waiting until they feel ready. Because ready is not an emotion, it's a decision.
I love money and I love to make a fuck ton of money. And my whole mission at my company now is to close the exit gap, which exists, which is that when women are selling their businesses, they sell them for less.
We also talk about identity, risk, and the importance of building companies that work for your life instead of trapping you in them. If you've ever wondered if you're cut out to start your own business, Carrie's story is proof that you don't need to wait for permission. You just need to start. Let's get into it. Carrie, what about business ownership do you think is the most powerful for women?
Oh, it's freedom. It's freedom. It's power. I feel like the second you realize you can be your own boss is the moment you realize that you are free. I'm completely and totally motivated by freedom and by nobody ever trapping me into something. And I think business ownership was the first time I ever learned how to really feel free.
What did that freedom look like in practice for you? Like, how is that different than working a 9-to-5 or working for somebody else?
Okay, so I think that everything I did in the early part of my career was fear-based. I truly think I lived in fear of getting fired, in fear of not being good at my job, in fear of ultimately not having money. I think my financial fear was the biggest piece of the equation for me. And once I realized, I think it started when I realized that I knew how to sell. Like once I realized I could ask someone for money and they could give it to me, that was when I first got into sales. I was like, oh, I have some freedom here. I can control my own destiny. And then the moment that I worked for myself was the moment that I knew that I could have real control of my time. I mean, I didn't start a business until I had young kids. And so for me, it was like, holy shit, I could get home. You mean I don't have to drive this 1.5-hour commute to rush home to give my daughter a bath? Like it was just the minute I realized that, there was no going back, which of course leads to a whole other set of challenges because you want to make the business successful, you want to make money, you want to do all of that. But I think really for me, so much of my freedom, it's so funny, it was like rooted in that sort of fear. Like I didn't want to work for somebody else. I didn't want someone to be able to fire me or change my destiny in any way. I wanted that control over that destiny.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking before you hopped on about money memories, and you just mentioned in that response of, so much of that fear was financial based. So can you talk about, was there an incident in your childhood? Was there something that happened that kind of exhausted that fear with money or made it more dramatic?
Okay, so this is really interesting. I've been studying my obsession around financial anxiety for decades now. I grew up in a middle-class house, very middle class. My parents had the philosophy that you do what you love. You don't really care about money and you value security. So in other words, they took jobs working for the government. My father at first had a very successful law practice and then said, no, I'm actually would prefer to be a judge. Like they valued pensions, like really, really into low risk. One of my very first memories was when okay, so I'm going to date myself for your young audience, but in 1987, when the stock market crashed, I was a little girl. And I remember being like fueled by that fear and being like, mommy, daddy, like, did something happen here? Like, are we okay? Are we safe? Yeah. And they looked at me and were like, oh, don't worry. We don't invest in that. We don't invest. Mm-hmm. Like, so it was always like, do what you love. Don't take any risks. Be safe. And it's better to be safe and like have low desires. It's just keep your expectations low and just like find something you really like and don't really take risks. And so for me, I was taught that very early on. And so it was only when really working for somebody felt intolerable, which is probably why I didn't do it until I had kids. Like when I had kids, it felt intolerable. I couldn't do it anymore. I just felt like there was no way on earth I would be able to make that happen.
Carrie, do you have a brother?
Yeah, I do.
Was your brother taught something different?
Okay, that is a fascinating question. My brother and I have completely different views on how we were raised. That is amazing. Oh my God, no one's ever asked me that. Because
what you just said was the feeling, I think, that as soon as we put gender on it, it becomes very clear what's happening. Because boys get taught to take risks. They get taught to try again. They're allowed to try again. But for girls and for women, it's pick the safe option, be perfect, don't want or desire anything. And I think it's extremely interesting but in addition, that you didn't have a want, or at least not a desire that you acted upon until it was a selfless desire, until it was, I'm going to do it for the health and the happiness of my children, not necessarily even for me, but because I know I can be a better mom to them if I'm home.
100%. And it's funny. I think they had the same philosophies with my brother, but I don't think it impacted him in the same way. For instance, when he went to state college, because that's what my parents that's where you were, and said, okay, he was going to law school. He got a full ride to St. John's, or he also got into Cornell Law. And my parents were like, you take the full ride to St. John's because it's the safe option and it'll be safe. It'll be fine. And my brother was like, actually, I'm going to go try and get into big law. And therefore, it's going to be a return on investment for me to go to Cornell. And he went. I never would have been able to do that. I would have been like, I can't do this, until it was for my daughters. That I think that was for me the big turning point.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the episode. I have to tell you about something really exciting we got going on. If you are the person who's always had a business idea or always wanted to start a business, be your own boss, have time freedom because you fucking hate your job, this is for you. If you've read the articles and listened to the podcasts, and I know you have because you're here listening, but you're so afraid to actually hit go, I've designed something exactly with you in mind. Together with my friend Mal, we have built Business Bootcamp, a 2-day live virtual workshop that takes you from idea to income in just days, not years. There's no fluff. We're just talking strategy, clarity, and momentum. We're walking you through our 10-step structure to start or grow your business, whether you don't even have an idea yet, have an idea but haven't started, or feel stuck in your side hustle. It is a 2-part workshop series. The first one is build the thing. The second one is sell the thing. And we're walking you through how to actually make money in 90 days or less. Inside Business Bootcamp, you're getting 10 core lessons, a clear goal, and actionable steps so you can finally pitch with confidence, price your offer, and actually launch. If you want more info, you can go to herfirst100k.com/business-bootcamp to get signed up. This is the first and last time we're doing this for at least the next year. And if you have always dreamt of being your own boss, of running your own life, of doing impact-driven work, then this is a no-brainer for you. See you there. Can you walk us through in more detail if there is a story or a moment you said, okay, I'm not doing this commute anymore, but like, what was that path to entrepreneurship? Like, what was the moment where you're like, okay, I've thought about doing this before, but I cannot not do it now?
Okay, so 2 things happened when that really gave me the confidence to take the leap. And it was like a combination of an event that gave me confidence and an intolerance for timing. So the intolerance for timing was I worked over an hour and a half away, and I was getting home too late for my daughter. Okay. But the story behind that is that when I gave birth to Charlotte, my first daughter, I had her on my own. And I was in the process when I met my now husband, when she was around 1. And Tori, when I tell you he wanted a larger than life wedding, I don't mean like he wanted like his friends from high school. I mean, if he were on this thing, he'd be like, hey, everyone, I really want you to come watch me get married. This like big personality. Okay. I am risk averse. I had a starter marriage with a wedding that my parents paid for, and I felt like I took a risk and it failed. It was the idea that I would have to figure that out or pay for it now when I have a child, us figuring it out, impossible. And so my first thought was that I wanted him to have what he wanted, and I wanted me to have what I wanted. And so out of my mouth came the following. Dave, we both love baseball. I have an idea. Let's pitch the minor league affiliate of the New York Mets, okay? We're going to buy out their night for sponsorships at $6,000. We're going to resell in sponsors into the game, and that'll all be wedding themed, okay? So we're going to pitch like David's Bridal. We'll have like a cute dress thing, and instead of Pepsi tossing t-shirts into the audience, 1-800-Flowers will toss bridal bouquets, and it'll be cute and campy and fun, and we can raise money for charity and get press, and it's going to be freaking amazing, okay? I don't know how that came out of my mouth. I don't. But it did. And the second it came out of my mouth, I was like, I can't take that back. What I just said, because his face, and I was like, oh shit, now I have to execute this. But we did. We did. We raised $100,000 in sponsorship. We were married in front of 5,000 people in front of the Brooklyn Cyclones. And we raised over $20,000 for the National MS Society. And we got all of this press everywhere. Everywhere, you name it, national, international press, ABC World News Tonight, CNBC On the Money, everywhere. It was a sponsored wedding that was done right, okay? So they picked it up, and then all the sponsors came to us and were like, you know what, you guys were so amazing. Like, you could do this, do it again, like come up with something. And so it was that moment, even in that moment, even when they looked at me and said, do this, I didn't feel ready. It was only when I was driving home and I was stuck in traffic. Like when I tell the fairy tale of the story, the fairy tale is, they said, do it again. We couldn't get married again. So we decided to start a company based on word of mouth marketing. And that was in 2007. And then social media opened to the public and boom, we were the first social media agency. That's the fairy tale. The real story is I'm driving. I still didn't have the confidence. I'm driving home in my car, hysterically crying that once again, my daughter's now stepfather has to give her bath at night. And I didn't want it. I wanted to be the person to do it. And so for me, it was intolerable. So it was a mix of, if I pulled that off, enough. You could shut up with your imposter syndrome nonsense and just go do it and take the leap. And that's what I did.
I want everybody to go back about 5 minutes and listen to that again, because the thing that you said that was so impactful that I cannot say enough on this show is that you will never, ever feel ready. Like you will never feel ready, whether that is in starting a business, whether that is in, negotiating your salary, whether that's in feeling worthy of opportunities. Like you will never, ever, ever feel 100% ready. And again, I can say from 2 successful businesswomen on this show, I have never felt ready and you've never felt ready, and you just have to do it. You just have to do it anyway. So I would love to spend a couple questions speaking to the entrepreneurs out there, the people who are like, I want to do this. So first of all, what do they get wrong about starting a business? What do entrepreneurs get wrong about starting?
Oh my gosh. I think that the first thing is that it's too hard to start. It's funny, whenever I talk to somebody about how they started their business, and a lot of times, like I worked in the services space, so I built an agency. An agency is based on people. Whenever I talk to somebody who worked in the product space, who built a business that sold, a big product or something like this, I always say, like, how did you figure it out? And they say to me every single time, Google. Like I Googled until I figured out how to find the manufacturing plant. I looked, we're all the same. So I think the biggest thing for an entrepreneur is that we have this belief that you have to be a certain something or somebody to start. But
you have to have a degree. You have to have
a degree. You have to have a this. You have to, Right. I mean, if you look at the Confidence Code by Patty Kay and Claire Shipman, like every piece of data is there about this. We don't take the leap unless we are certain. And so the biggest thing I think for us is to sort of abandon that need for certainty. It's really like, it really, really, really holds us back. That and our own, like, just inner judge, like, who do you think you are? Like, think about it. I had pulled off something that was like pretty damn impossible. And I still wouldn't have started unless I got the push that I had to, do this, or I was going to implode. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, that word certainty too is so interesting because to someone who isn't an entrepreneur, certainty feels like a 9 to 5. Certainty feels like a twice a week paycheck and hopefully health insurance and a 401k or a pension, right?
Yep.
And every time I got a new job that seemed to promise certainty, it was nothing but uncertainty between bosses I didn't respect or who didn't like me or didn't want to see me succeed to, I never experienced layoffs, but I have so many friends who did. Or, I worked at startups where there was always, some turmoil of someone getting let go or something happening. And it was like, I just think that so many women, again, because we are told to pick the secure, certain thing, the only certain thing to me is me. Like,
That's
I know
correct.
that I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my best work and I can rely on me. I can't necessarily rely on everybody else. And especially a job that I am the lowest of the low on the totem pole of responsibility. So if you're looking for certainty, being in an environment where you're worth more, but keep telling yourself, no, it's not the right time, you are basking in uncertainty.
You bet. And now more than ever, whether you are early in your career or you are midway through your career and making a good amount, you better bet that companies are looking at how to make you a little more expendable all the time. Like, the further up you go, in a way, the less certain you are. So no matter what, it's always a good idea to think about what you would do, if you were on your own and like how you could do it. And then just like, take the leap if you can.
Yeah. Well, and again, with government jobs, I'm not going to spend too much on politics here, but like, we are seeing how many, government jobs get slashed that felt like the secure, smart thing, right?
Yeah. My dad passed away about 15 years ago. And I always think, like, what would he think about this? That is like all you thought was ever secure is now totally upended. Like, wow. Like, I wonder how he would approach that feeling of security and safety now. It's wild. Wild.
I think one of the things that holds people back from starting a business that you've already briefly touched on is the belief that I need to have certain credentials or a certain amount of money, or, oh, I have kids, so I don't have time, or I work a busy schedule already, so I don't have time. Like, what sort of those other limiting beliefs are we telling ourselves that are actually not true at all?
Yeah, I think the concept of what we have time for is really, really important because we make time for what we feel intrinsically is important. And when we don't make time to living out our fullest potential from a career perspective with entrepreneurship, we are simply reinforcing for ourselves that we're not important. It's really like, okay, you don't have time. You're not making the time because you are telling yourself that you are not important enough to do that. And again, that does come from a place of there is a place of privilege there. This is not for, when you're really paycheck to paycheck. And in that situation, it's a very, very challenging thing. But at the same time, I think another piece that's really important is just, I always look at this. I just had a friend the other day who was laid off for the second time. And I said, what you do is so amazing. You could consult, like, these people don't want to pay these 6-figure salaries, but like lots and lots of companies would pay you to come in to set up their infrastructure, right? And, she was just so filled with fear. And at one point I looked at her and I said, let me ask you something. What are your other options right now? Your other options are to go look for another job and go through this again. Like, bet on yourself and make that time for yourself. If you can't, it's like, it's a very loving act, I think, to start a business. It's an act of self-love.
One thing I've talked about online is that, like, I'm not special. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, like like criticizing myself. Like,
Yep.
Again, I think it's easy to look at you or I, and even in this conversation, again, your brain, dear listener, probably right now is going, okay, but they have something I don't.
Right.
Again, privilege. Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
But
yes.
like, I'm not special. I didn't even study technically the thing that I'm doing now. Like, I don't have a rich uncle. Like, I am not special. I don't have a confidence gene that I was born with that you don't have. Like, there's nothing I have that you don't, except that I started before I was ready. Done was better than perfect. And I just decided, you know what? We're just going to launch this thing and I'll figure it out as I go. That was it.
And you probably removed judgment from yourself. You know,
I had to.
I think it's so much.
Had to.
It's we sit and judge ourselves in a way that is so damaging. If I look at every aspect of my business, I say, oh, that's not good enough. That's not, you know, it's totally self-defeating in every single way. And so
it's also
totally
identity driven. It's identity driven, Carrie, too, because you can fail and men, for the most part, just go, oh, I failed, or that didn't work out. But women internalize it. We go, I am a failure. I failed. So therefore, I am a failure, as opposed to that didn't work out. What did I learn? We're going to keep moving.
It's also, yeah, you're exactly right. Identity being tied to what we do is a whole thing. So like, you know, I sold a business that I ran for 14 years. Like, I was Carrie, the CEO of Likeable. I got married on a baseball field and started this business. And here we are. And then all of a sudden I sold it and I was like, who the fuck am I? Like, who am I now? Like, I have to be a whole new person. And so the idea that we attach ourselves to who we are in any given moment, to what we do, that our worth is tied up in what we do, is a whole other ballgame. I mean, forget it.
I think before we transition to talking about the sale of that business and all of that, in your book, you talk about walking people through finding their secret sauce. And again, this is where you have to discover what or why you uniquely are set out to do this particular thing. So what are like 2 specific things our listeners can do today to start uncovering what their secret sauce is?
If they already have a business or when they're figuring out to start their business, I can answer
Figuring
both.
out to start the business. Let's do that first.
Figuring out to start. What do you, when you are doing something professionally, where do you feel at your best and like it's effortless? Where do you feel like you're in the zone? Like, what is that moment? That's the internal. Where do you feel? And then think about really, what do people tell you you're also great at, which is external validation, which typically I tend to avoid external validation, but I do think it's good to see what people notice on the positive, what you're really good at, and see how well that matches up with what gives you joy, what gives you that spirit, what gives you that boost. And then the last thing that I would say, I actually like when we talk about confidence and we talk about competence, right? What we need to do. I always go for the MVC, which is like the minimum viable competence. Like when I was, after I sold my business and I was like, okay, I'm going to start a new career. I was like, okay, I'm going to go into helping women build sellable businesses. And I was like, okay, I did it myself. Do I really feel confident enough to have other people do it? And I'm like, yeah. But I'd like a little tiny bit more than me. So what should I do? So I got certified as like an exit planning advisor. And I was like, okay, in that moment, it validated what I already knew. Like I did a very small, like I walked into the class and I was like, I know all this shit. And then I felt so mush better. Like I was like, oh my God, look, I'm validated by this experience. So I look for what is the minimum viable competence you need to be able to take that leap. Because there's, you know, competence is a good thing. It's good to have competence, but it's way, way more important for us right now to focus on the confidence to just take that leap. So I like to pair up minimum viable competence with just really where you are in your zone of genius.
My last question for you, for folks who want to be business owners. You mentioned in this conversation that you're risk averse, which I know is something a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs resonate with.
Yes.
Because I think typically we see that entrepreneurs are comfortable with risk, or we interpret that they're comfortable with risk. How do you work through that trepidation you feel?
I feel it and I do it anyway. And I journal the shit out of it. I mean, Tori, it doesn't go away. I really want to be clear for anyone who is struggling with that financial anxiety or risk aversion. Okay. So I built up that business. It was extremely profitable. It was an 8-figure business that I sold for 8 figures. It doesn't go, the anxiety or the risk aversion, it doesn't go away. And the reason is that it is rooted in a lot of your childhood shit and a lot of things that go feelings about money are almost never truly financial. Almost never. They're
Almost
not.
never.
I mean, you know this. You know this. And like, it's crazy. And I think for me, a lot of the times, I always think like, I've done a lot of thinking on this, of where some of my stuff comes from. And it's risk aversion. And it's also from the time that I was young, I was very, very generous. Always. Like I always loved to buy people things and do things. And I think that some of my fear around money, and listen to this, how fucked up this is. So hopefully your listeners can get so deep, is that if I don't have money, I can't be as generous as I want to be. If I can't be as generous as I want to be, what happens? People might not like me. And that is where my money shit comes from. Like that is truly, truly crazy making stuff.
No, but that's almost every woman listening to this show right now.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's absolutely insane. And so the point being, it doesn't go away. It just shifts and morphs. You learn to take more risks, but you always have it within you. So just know it.
I just wrote down, you're not risk adverse. You just don't trust yourself.
That's right. That's right. It's so funny that you just said that, because I think last night I wrote this in I was doing this journaling program thing that I've been working on. And I wrote, the opposite of anxiety is trust. Like I just wrote that down, like all of that anxiety that I can feel sometimes, like if I just trust, whether it's first of all, believe in myself, believe in it, in all the things, it's true. It's a real antidote. I mean, trust is it.
So if you're running a business, I think something that starts to happen as you keep going is that a lot of business owners start feeling disconnected from their why. Can you share an example of what that might look like? And then how do we reconnect to why we're doing this?
Yeah. So I think why is the single most important question that we're going to ask when we're looking at our businesses and what we're doing and how. With my own why, when we started, so as I mentioned, after the wedding, do it again, yay, we start a word of mouth company, becomes a social media agency. It starts growing really, really quickly. Okay. One of the first social media agencies in existence. Fortune 500 companies calling us. We have no business working with Fortune 500 companies. We were babies and trying to figure it out. So we're growing this company, starts to become really big. Dave, my husband, is like, you know what? I want to launch a tech company. I want to go take more risks. Da, 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 da. I was like, okay, go try this. And I will focus on how to make this little agency profitable and give us some money. Because we were operating, this is the other thing that people don't realize. When you're growing a business quickly and you work with things like Fortune 500s, they take a very long time to pay. You have to hire staff. You have to do all the things. And it was not like massively cash producing yet. And so in that moment, my why became survive, right? As we learned how to grow, and as I focused on, I was very focused on how to make that thing profitable and how to grow it to sell and all that, I realized that I was very disconnected from that business. It just wasn't what was fueling my soul. It didn't feel aligned with who I was. And so in being disconnected from that, I immediately said, oh crap, I need to sell this business. Right? Because that's what I need to get out. And what I realized in that process was that I was kind of trapped. I had built this business and it was big and it ended up providing a very healthy income for our family. And I was sitting there and the prospect of selling it was so scary, but I needed a way to be able to get out. And when I was looking at my why, it was what's what if I sold it, what would I do? Like, what if I'm so misaligned? Like, who am I and where am I going? And it wasn't until I got really clear about what I wanted to do next that I was able to successfully sell the business. Otherwise it just, it's very hard when you own a business, you start a business, you think you're so excited, you build it, then you're done with it. Then you're like, what the heck do I do with it? And it was like just really malaligned. Or sometimes we set out with big dreams, like I want to make a fuck ton of money, this, that, the other. But if you can't articulate to me why, then something's off. Like why and how much and why and getting through and really to like the number, the reason behind the number and where you want to get to. That's another area that I work with founders on a lot.
I want to touch on something you just said, which is like my why was I just need to make money, or I want to make a fuck ton of money. Again, I can hear the listeners' brains going, my why, if I'm a business owner, has to be some sort of moral good.
No.
Right? It has to be, I'm saving puppies from the shelter. I am donating 98% of my profits to cancer research. Like, I hope if you've listened to this show enough, you know that, quote, make a fuck ton of money is a great reason to have, that's a why. That's why enough. You don't have to apologize for it. But how do we run businesses that both feel values aligned while we're also like, yeah, I want this to be fucking huge?
Oh, so make no mistake. I love money and I love to make a fuck ton of money. And my whole mission at my company now is to close the exit gap, which exists, which is that when women are selling their businesses, they sell them for less. But my whole mission in life is to make women more money. One thing that is really, really important is when you're building a business, that it has solid business fundamentals, that when you're looking at the profit, you're basing it in a space that's real for the business and building real goals that help you get to where you are. So for me, it's about, okay, I want to make a fuck ton of money because I want to be able to not be tied to anyone, right? We talked about freedom in that way. I would very much like to get to a point, and I'm unapologetic about it, that I'm at fuck you money. The question is, how much money is fuck you money? And that number, by the way, is different for everybody. It's different based on where you live. If you have kids and extra family in your life that are dependent upon you, what your lifestyle is. So for me, what I like to do with founders is get really clear on what they want and sort of really being able to articulate why they want it. Not because they need to apologize, really because I want them to have and get exactly what they want and then plan backwards to get there. Like I think about, like I set out that vision for what I wanted to do, and then I went for it and planned backwards to get there. And that's sort of how I was able to do it.
Well, in the same theme or the same vein as that, you've said that we need to stop thinking of our companies as like lifestyle businesses. I would also lump like, oh, it's just a hobby into that. Like you said, we need to start thinking of them as assets. So
yes, what
does that unlock for us when it stops being a lifestyle company or a hobby and starts being an asset?
Yes. So first of all, my relationship with the word lifestyle business is complicated because I think every business is technically a lifestyle business. You're just choosing your damn lifestyle. That's it. But I think that if you're looking at, the way we look at our businesses, when we look at, there was a study done that looked at businesses that were sold over a 10-year period. 1% were female founded. And the reason that is not that we're starting businesses less. We're actually starting businesses at twice the rate of the population growth, okay? We are starting businesses, but we truly don't think of them, many of us, as anything other than hobbies or something to get us through child rearing years or a side hustle or a whatever the heck it is. And we're not looking at them as assets. Now, for me, I look at every business, whether or not I want to sell it. I don't give a damn if you ever want to sell a business. I look at every single business as an asset, which means you're building this thing. If it is something that could be transferred to somebody else, it has value beyond what it's making you today. And every single business, I don't care if you are a coach or a solopreneur or baking cookies or wherever you are, every single business can be transferable. And when I look at businesses that you build and I look at how businesses are valued, it changes the whole way you run something. So in other words, if you run a business that's $500,000 a year and off of that business, you make $100,000 a year, right? You bring it home. If you transfer that business, you will be paid a multiple of that $100,000 without having to work all of the years it would take to do that. And when this number gets bigger, your multiple gets exponentially bigger. So when we have a shift, even if you never want to sell it, even if you think I'm batshit, like if you build it so that you can sell it, then when you get that moment of either, oh shit, I really don't like doing this anymore, or God forbid, something happens to you or your family and you need a change, or you get a divorce, or you have something where this needs to be sold, you're able to do it. And that for me, it's all about my key motivator is definitely freedom, because it's about making sure that women have the freedom to get out when they need to. It's about, making sure that they don't have anyone controlling them. And sometimes when you leave work and you start a business, it feels like the business controls you, Yeah. And so it's all freedom all the time.
Carrie, how do we determine the difference between I want to sell my business and burnout?
I mean, ideally, almost always when you're crying and you want to sell your business, it's burnout.
Not
Everyone who calls me is like, I'm done. I want to sell my business. If you, and that's okay. It's okay. It's just not ideal.
I love this business. And dear listeners, I can tell you fully transparently, I have had in a literal closet, like crying moments of like, I'm fucking done. Now, was I done? No, but I felt that way.
Right. So like you have to be able to evaluate what is a moment and what feels more like a movement. Like it should feel, there's two ways that I like to know if like you're really ready to be done versus like just being burned out. One is like you're on a up and you're like, you know what? This business is beautiful and it's it could go to a new home. It could like be in a space of calm of like really being in that space. And the other one is just you've extracted the value that you feel like a lot of people are able to extract the monetary value that they need from the business. And then they want to like find it a good home. Like those are great. If you are burnt out and want to sell, there's no shame in that. It's just really good to get it to a space. That's why I like to think about making a business sellable before you ever think about wanting to sell it.
Okay, so what are the first signs that a business is ready to move from like scrappy and stable to scalable and sellable?
Okay, so scalable is an interesting word because I'm very big on like bootstrap businesses that just steadily build and don't need like, massive capital infusions to give up your equity and blah, blah, blah. That's like not my bag. So for me, I think it's once you have product market fit, you have a monetization model, you know how much you make off of what you sell, right? Like you have a good idea of like that profit margin, et cetera, and you feel good. And then you're ready to test stuff. Like you get it to a space where enough people have tested this and you've learned, and you get it to a space where it's making some money. And then you think, okay, am I ready to take some of that money? And this is hard to do because we're A, raised in scarcity, and B, we like money. So we're going to take some of that money and bet on it. So like if you're, let's say you've started a consulting business and you are loving it, or an interior design business, you're loving it, you're great, you make a good living, your cost is right, it's all good. And now you want it to be bigger. Maybe you want to invest in ads. Maybe you want to bring on a partner. Maybe you want, it could be a million things you want to do. Once you have an understanding of the profit, you take that risk and test. And the biggest thing that I have learned is just don't be afraid to fail. So lots of tests fail. I mean, I've tested a million things in both businesses and they failed. And then some have like been huge wins, and you just don't know until you try.
You talk about that not all revenue is created equal, and I could not agree more with that.
Yes.
So what should listeners look for in their revenue to know that it's healthy and scalable versus revenue that's keeping them trapped?
Okay. I wish I had a glass of wine with me because I would explain it. So I talk about it. I have an analogy in the book that talks about keeping your revenue red. So normally we like to be in the black, not red. But red means that your revenue is recurring. So whether it's retainer-based, subscription-based, any of those things, or you have customers that repeat and you understand that. So recurring, expected, you're able to forecast with relative ease where you're going to be. And like, okay, we know generally, it doesn't have to be exact, but it should be, we have a good idea, recurring, expected. And then the last piece is diversified. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to put all your eggs in one sponsor, one client, one anything really, one product. You want to make sure that you have an ability to really diversify that acts as a safety net. So I always say, keep your income red, recurring, expected, and diversified.
That makes me feel really good because I'm doing all of those things.
I know you are.
Yay.
I know you are. I'm so proud of you.
It's also something that the forecasting bit, again, if you are someone who wants to start a business or in the early stages of business ownership, you're like, what do you mean forecasting?
You don't know. But you can't do that.
Yeah. I'm telling you that you can get to a point, I know with pretty darn close accuracy what the business is going to make. We're recording this July 2025. I could tell you what it's going to do in December of this year. I could tell you January. I could tell you July of next year. And I only know that because I've been in business now a couple of years and I understand if there's seasonality. I understand if we're promoting things. July is also a unique thing because we always do a birthday sale because it was my birthday last week. So like that's predictable. So those are the things that, again, if you are a newbie business owner or somebody who wants to be a business owner, you're going, well, I can't do forecasting. I can't determine what's going to happen a year from now, so I can't be a business owner. No, this is the kind of thing that you learn while running the business. And I would say 98% of the shit that I know is because I learned it while running the business.
Absolutely. And my other thing that I say all the time, so very interesting because I've been in this business, which is the Whisper Group, for like a year. And the thing that I keep saying is that my biggest lesson from this, because I built totally from scratch again. As long as you think it's going to take you, it takes longer. Even if you're a fast growing business, it takes a while. You've got to test and learn. You got to play. You've got to do all of that. And just don't beat the crap out of yourself when you're not able to forecast immediately. Don't beat yourself up if you have one big client in the beginning. If that's what helps you start, it's great.
What is the most common mistake that you see women make in trying to grow and then eventually exit their business?
Well, the biggest mistake I see in exit, I'll go backwards. The biggest mistake in exit is selling when you are totally burnt out and depressed and on a low. If you want to be able to go out before you need to, it's just like a credit line, I don't know if we talk about this on the show, but apply for a credit line when you don't need one, not when you need one, because when you need one, it's harder to get. I have a whole story with that. But you want to sell when you're on the up, when you're feeling good. Your value will be exponentially better. So waiting too long. And the biggest mistake when growing their businesses, I think for women, it's not taking enough risk. I know for me it was. I mean, when I look at what I would have done differently with Likeable, I would have bought a couple of small agencies. I could have done amazing things if I did that. And by the way, when you buy some of these businesses, you don't even have to put that much cash down. Why was I afraid to do that? Why was I so afraid? But I definitely was. Wouldn't have gone on my radar.
I think acquisition is one that's really interesting. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but totally. I think that you and I should talk offline because it's something that I've been considering seriously over the past year or two. But yes. I think that it's those sorts of things where, again, it's so easy to play small and just be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing and focus on trying to scale the thing. And it's like, yeah, sometimes risk does look like, are there other businesses I can buy or reinvest in? Is there something else I can be doing that, again, requires maybe more money than I thought I could negotiate with? How do we get to the point where we feel like, yes, this business is worth investing in. I'm worth investing in. I am worth making this work. Even if it does cost money, even if it does mean I fail publicly, even if it does mean that my ego's bruised time and time again. How do we get to that point?
Okay. So one of the reasons that I built my next business was exactly this. I built the Whisper Group based on everything that I wished I had. So things I wished I had. I wish I had somebody who had done what I did, similar, but had taken risks and shown me that it was possible. When I was selling, I wish I had someone who had sold their business. I was looking for women who had sold their businesses, who had taken it across the finish line. And so what I would say is that with these things, it is so important to find someone who has done this before. Find somebody who will advise you when you're ready to take some of those risks in any capacity. We have it at the Whisper Group on growth, but there are many, many ways you can do this. The Fourth Effect helps you form advisory boards. There's all women, like great, brilliant companies do this. You need to have the difference between, like, you're talking about real growth now. Do you invest? Like, when I look at you and say, oh my God, what you've done is amazing, like how far you could go. I want you talking to people who have built some real big shit, because you have built really something special and different and huge. And so I need people who, if you're going to take risks, I want you to have really good insight from people who've done that on a even bigger scale if possible. So I do that all the time with like agencies that I'm helping all these women marketing agencies acquire other women-owned marketing agencies, which are a win-win for everyone, and help them grow. It's like a healing experience for me, because it's everything I wish I did, but didn't, because I didn't have that support. So I think support, wherever you get it, is critical from people who've done it before.
That brings me to something I didn't expect to talk to you about, but like,
I'm ready.
The loneliness of entrepreneurship, like at every stage. I want to start this and my parents don't support it, or my husband doesn't support it, or my high school friends make fun of me posting on social media, which, by the way, get fucking new friends. But
100%.
Then, as someone who has grown a business that continues to do well, there is, the phrase, the higher you climb, what is it? I don't know. The higher you climb, the less people you have to talk to.
That's right. That's right. The thinner the air. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. The old phrase, the higher you climb, the less people you have to talk to. But I think every aspect or every stage of starting, running, growing, exiting a business can feel extremely lonely. Especially if you're a woman, especially I think if you're a woman of color, where you're like, who else has done this? Like, who else will talk to me about it? Because marginally, you just have a smaller sample size of people who can talk to you.
And the network. Right. The thing is, men have these fucking conversations on the golf course all the time. They all have all the time. So who do we go to talk to? I mean, I had fallen into this business with Dave, and it was great. And then he went to build something else. And then there I am at a table surrounded by men on the largest transaction of my lifetime. And I literally was like, I don't know if I have anyone to go to. And I never felt more alone in my life. And I had a lot of paid professional support there. And so for me, it's about people who get entrepreneurship, and it's providing access to those networks of people that you don't realize. It's unfathomable to me what, of course, men have done this successfully forever. Of course, 99% of the dollars at exit go to men, and same thing with VC and everything else. It's like they have access to things that we haven't. And yet this is the biggest time in history that women are starting businesses. We are saying, fuck it. We really are, because it's intolerable, because it's truly intolerable. And so if we just had those networks, what might we be able to do? It's really lonely. I get it.
What would an exiting founder say to someone who is just starting their business?
Oh my God, they would say, stick with it. They would say, I know that it takes time. They would say, I'm proud of you. They would say, I'm proud of you. And just keep going. I always talk about this, Tori, the difference between a successful entrepreneur and an unsuccessful entrepreneur is really time and commitment to that act. If you stick with it and are in it, you'll iterate, you'll find it, you'll get there. It's really about the commitment to the act of having this business. That business might morph, it might change, et cetera, but sticking with it and having the fortitude to do it, because it's just so hard. It's lonely and you're making money out of thin air. You're like making it up as you go. It's really hard. So in the beginning, it's just sticking it out. If you can make it and you can produce, income and get there, you can make it the first 5 years, you're going to be good. Like you just, those first 5 years are really, really hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Okay. I can't let you go without talking the exit gap, because it's, less than 1% of all exits are female led. You said that. Yep. And when women do exit, they earn significantly less. I'm not going to ask you why do you think this gap exists? Clearly sexism and lack of resources and all of that. But are there concrete ways we can close it?
Yeah, there are. Actually, there's some really promising recent data about female founders being focused on exit readiness. So yes, it's sexism. Yes, it's the patriarchy. It's all the things, but it's also that we start businesses that are more primarily bootstrapped. And so we don't realize that it's an option. This is all about education. If we realize and we recognize that these businesses, these lifestyle businesses, can become life-changing assets. You can run that lifestyle business. You can make your money. You can raise your family on your own schedule without any push. You don't need to be pushing because you don't have investors. You're doing it at your own pace. And when you're done, you can then extract some value for your hard work. I don't think people know it, but the data recently, what I saw is from a Wells Fargo report, I think, and I will actually send this to you for show notes, but it talked about that women are more focused on exit readiness than ever before. And that's what I like to see. I really try and measure. I'm trying to do the exit gap study as often as I can, because I just compile all that data. But I just saw that, and that warmed my heart a little, because I think it's really a lot of it on closing the gap. You're never really going to close the gap if the fundraise. You're not going to close the gap on amount. If fundraising is still at 2%, right, for female, okay, then these giant behemoths. But I don't care so much about the giant. Good for them. It's amazing. I don't care about the big funded behemoths. I care about the woman who is starting up with no capital and figuring it out and getting through and building, whether it's a professional services business or starting a media company or doing any of those things. I think all of those women can get educated, and I think you will see a mass boom on those types of exits.
I wouldn't be surprised to hear too that one of the reasons women are exiting at the rate men are is the ownership we have over the business of the this is our baby. Or I think that, again, so many women, especially I think all the time, could I exit from this business? And I know you're going to tell me yes, but one, just the emotional of how do I give up, not control in a control freak way, but how do I not, how do I not make decisions about this business anymore? How do I step away and have separation? But also too, I think people are largely here at her HFK for me. People listen to Financial Feminist for me. And if somebody else hosts this show, I don't think it works the same way. And I think a lot of women are building, yes, lifestyle, but lifestyle or influencer-y type businesses where the trust is built with that one person. So prove me wrong.
Okay. Well, I have two answers for you, Tori. I have two different answers for you there. So what you're talking about is how do you build a business when you're a person? How do you build an exitable business? How do you sell a business when you're a personality? Which is you are a media personality. Of course you are. And you have built a business that, from what I've seen and would hope to see, goes far beyond just your personality, because you have systems and all of the things that you do and have and da-da-da. But you are correct that people still want you. So that if I work with when I talk to someone like you, or I'm giving someone like you advice, first of all, I would pair you with somebody who really has been in your shoes. But in your case, you have sort of two options. One, you could say, fuck this, I'm going way beyond. I'm bringing in other personalities under me, and I'm having a full-on media company, right? Which you can, 100%. It requires investment, requires thinking, requires a lot of stuff like that.
We've tried it.
Yeah, it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But just because you tried that once might mean that
we didn't try it well.
Work.
Yeah,
right.
I would do it differently now if we were really investing in that again. Yep.
Two, you separate and spin off some of the systems and mechanisms and any schools or things that you have. You build out some things that are sort of like, they're connected, but they're separate from you, the person. That's another area. Third is you run it as you have it now. You make a ton of money. And when you sell, which you can do, somebody's going to have to pay you a fuck ton for you to do it. Now, the idea is you extract so much that you then don't care. You want to be in the space where you have taken out so much that you don't care if you sell it. And that is when you will sell it for a lot. So
I'm not going to say who it is, but I have a good friend who sold their name and stays on as like brand director.
Yep. Brand director, great. And if they pay you enough, sounds great. And they, sometimes when I sold, I worked for the acquirer for 3 years. And sometimes they were a good acquirer, but sometimes they would say some stuff to me where I was like, wrong. You know, they would say, okay, you're going to go in this direction. I've been wrong. No, wrong. And then I would say, they paid me a lot of money for them to be wrong. It's fine. They're right. They earn that right.
Less practically, like you just gave me a great practical answer, which I appreciate. Yep. From the mindset point, right? And whether I'm using me as a guinea pig, I'm not going anywhere anybody for a while. No. So let's reassure. But like, how do I, if somebody comes in and they're like, we're going to do this, how do I not go, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And I need to do it. And like, boom, 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 boom. Like, how do you not do that?
Well, that's the reason that a lot of people don't stay on. I mean, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs and they just are not happy often after they sell in terms of like working for somebody else. It's very hard to do. So you need to find an acquirer. See, the idea is you get the business and you get your own personal finances in a place that when you sell, you get to choose what you want, choose your own adventure. And for me, that's my biggest wish. I actually talk about this all the time. So I used to talk about, one of my quotes on my website was like, I want women to have as much money as possible, or something very generic, which I do. But I changed it actually to be that I want happy, healthy exits, because the reality is, if you have a happy, healthy exit, the money comes. The money's a part of it. But I want people not selling their souls to people who will, take over and shit all over their stuff. The other thing you said, though, before, which is my business, it wasn't really about you, but you were saying women think about this. My business is my baby. That is all about the identity part that we talked about earlier. It's that our identity is tied up in these businesses and you got to divorce that. It's like, it's a part of who you are, but it is not the entirety of who you are. It's not.
What is one thing a business owner could do this week to make their company more valuable, even if they're nowhere near selling it?
You want something tiny and practical?
Give me tiny and practical and big and exciting.
Okay. One thing that you could do to make your business, this actually so works for your audience. Go through your freaking business credit cards and your subscriptions. You talk about that. I think you work with Rocket Money, but like go through, look at all the itemized things there and just get rid of shit you don't need. So when you sell, you're worth a multiple of your profit, usually. So think about, like, let's say you're worth 8 times. Every dollar you save could be 8 on a payout. So like really focus on your profit. That is like the most practical. The biggest one I could say to be more exit ready is, think about who would acquire you and go to coffee with them or virtual coffee. Like just start conversations early. Like, who's someone in your space that you admire? Who would you love? Just want to hang out, say hi, stay on each other's radar so that 10 years down the line, when you're ready to do this, you have a relationship with them. I should have done that. I should have sold to Hello Sunshine. I did not. I didn't even think it would be possible. I would have been a good acquisition for them. And I never thought it was possible. I know. And I should have called them. And but instead I just,
that would have been a great acquisition.
I know.
Yeah, but and it's also too, even if you never sell or even if you never sell to them, it gets you in the mindset of thinking long-term about the business, which is your job as CEO, is to start thinking. You're not going to have everything. You're not going to foresee everything, right? But like, I have a general idea of where I'd like us to be in 3 years. I have a general idea of that.
Exactly.
And so you start figuring that out through conversations. Okay, my last question.
I'm
if
ready.
you could go back and whisper, pun intended, something in your own ear, circa 2007, with 10K in the bank and a dream, what would that be?
Okay. I would whisper in my ear the same thing I have said over and over to myself as someone who has struggled with anxiety and all of it, which is, Carrie, worry is a misuse of the imagination. Just one step at a time. Go forward. It's a misuse of when I look at myself, I think, like, really, in there is a brilliant mind. Like, I know it. I know what I'm able to do. And like, all of that big, beautiful brain energy being spent on worrying, it's just a misuse of my time. And if I could say it early, I learned it later. Actually learned it when my dad was sick, but I carried it through in business. And like, it just, worry is, you can't worry about things you can't control. The only thing you do is focus on what you can control and focus on believing in yourself more than anyone else. I mean, it's you got to count on yourself.
I love it. If you're watching on YouTube, my light just went out, which means apparently we're done.
We're done.
Was like, I'm done.
The podcast
episode is over.
That's it. It's over. Time to go.
Carrie, where can people find more about you?
Okay. You can find more about me. Let's see. wearethewhispergroup.com. You can, on there's a quiz that you can take to see how much your business is worth today. That's a really good one. That's whispercalculator.com. And on social, Carrie Kerpen. Yeah. If you go to whispercalculator.com, you can legit enter in your stuff, Tori, and you can see how much it's worth.
I'm doing it right now.
Do it right now. Whispercalculator.com. And please follow me, Carrie Kerpen. Social media is so hard, Tori. You do such a good job. And like, I've been posting every day for a year. No, it's horrible. And then you know what you said about when you said get new friends, when you said that about like if people are making fun of you about your social media.
Yeah.
When I first started posting early, like I decided I was going to post every day, like all this stuff, I would see sends. And I was like, I know who's sending this. My little bitches in the playground. They're definitely sending this because there's nobody following me. In the beginning. So whatever. I just didn't care. I basically like sent a text to everyone I knew, like, hey, I'm going to spam your social media for a while. Unfollow me if you don't like it. Bye.
I love it. That's so good. Thank you. This was so helpful. I love it.
You got it.